Welcome to my YouTube channel .js. In this video tutorial, we are going to learn about SolidJS. For the purpose of this tutorial, we will be migrating an existing React to do application into a SolidJS application. So let's get started. So before we get started, a little information about me. So I'm Vijay, senior front-end React engineer based in Hamburg. I've also added the link to my GitHub profile to the description of this video. If you want to know more about me, please check it out. Now let's dive right in. Before we write some code in SolidJS, let's try and answer these questions. So what is SolidJS? Let's briefly look at what SolidJS is. Should you be watching this video? Well, if you are already a ReactJS developer and you are quite familiar with the concepts of React hooks, virtual DOM, all these React ecosystem terminologies, then you definitely should be watching this video. Having said that, if you are an intermediate or just a beginner in React, still you can watch this video and basically try and understand the concepts of SolidJS and compare it with React. Now, to answer the last question, can I replace SolidJS in my existing React application? Well, to answer this question, we might have to write some code and try and understand how SolidJS is doing the React way of things. So let's try and answer this specific question at the end of this video. Why? Because there are a lot of things which determines whether should you use SolidJS in your existing React application. So let's answer this question at the end of this session. So what is SolidJS? Well, SolidJS is a simple reactive framework for building user interfaces. I don't mean to scare when I use the term framework there, because you might be thinking, oh, no way, man, it's another framework. Don't be scared. It is nothing unlike React. You can write components using JSX, you can write components using TSX, you can add the CSS functionalities that you have in React, except for the style components. Well, essentially everything that you've done in React can be done in SolidJS, be it context, be it creating a store, and also you can write hooks. Well, SolidJS hooks are not like React hooks. We will cover that now. So as I mentioned earlier, SolidJS is heavily inspired by React, especially the concept of React hooks. So if you have written a lot of applications using React hooks, then writing SolidJS hooks might be much more simpler for you. Why? Because SolidJS has a really cool concept of hooks wherein you don't need any rules to follow. So when it comes to React hooks, you might have seen oftentimes that the order of execution of hooks should be maintained throughout the life cycle of the hooks. I mean, to be honest, I have no idea why that rule is there. But if you are interested in the topic, feel free to comment that out, and we can probably interact in the comment section. So yeah, coming back to Solid now. Also, the other thing about Solid is the performance of the SolidJS applications. So as it is mentioned in this section here, every component in SolidJS executes once, and only the hooks and its bindings execute many times as their dependencies update. I think this is a really cool feature in SolidJS, and we will be covering this point again while we actually build the application, and probably see if the re-rendering concept is actually better than React. When it comes to data direction flow, I think it's pretty much like React, which is pretty unidirectional. And yeah, probably you cannot also mutate stuff when it comes to mutating context or state or whatever. However, it has a different implementation of the virtual DOM concept in SolidJS. We will not be covering that topic in this video. But if you are interested to know more about the virtual DOM concept in SolidJS, I'll post a link in the description of this video to an amazing blog written by the author of SolidJS, where he explains a lot about the heuristics that he took to actually come up with the DOM implementation. Yeah, also you might be wondering, if it's nothing unlike React, why should I even use SolidJS? Well, that's a good question. We can answer that question also in the end of the session. Okay, yeah, so now let's dive into the code and probably make our comparisons while we go along. Here we go, guys. So we will be building a to-do application with SolidJS, and for this I've already created a to-do application in React, which we will use to migrate it to SolidJS. Now I've already built the to-do app in SolidJS just to show you guys how and what we are going to do. So this basically has all the to-do functionalities. You can add a to-do, you can mark a to-do as done, you can mark a to-do as undone, and also it has this done column wherein if you mark a to-do as done, it's going to appear in the done column. And you can also mark a to-do as undone from this done column by clicking on this to-do there. So basically the kind of data direction flow is vice versa here. When you mark something as done, it's going to appear there, and when you mark something as undone, it's going to get undone in the left side of the panel here. So this is what we're going to build, and we're going to build it from the scratch. So yeah, we will be using Tailwind for the CSS system, and I've already added the configuration for Tailwind to get Tailwind up and running. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna kill the server, and I'm gonna go into solid scratch directory. Now let's start this server. Okay, ready in 189 milliseconds. There you go. So now we have the pretty, standard boilerplate application, which we won't be needing at all. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove all this boilerplate code. Let's do this way. Okay, there you go. Did you notice how fast the hot reloading and the server startup time was? Well, that's what is SolidJS, guys. It is definitely faster than React, and it gives a good developer experience. Also, one thing that you notice here is the keyword class here. Now, if you're coming from a React background, you might have noticed that you use class names to basically indicate a class name. You can also use that in Solid, but Solid also allows us to use class as a property to add class names to your components. So we won't be needing the boilerplate style, so I'm just gonna delete this directory. Oh, let's not delete it. We'll just not import it, and then we don't need this, and let's get rid of this. So in order to check if Tailwind is working, let's create a small heading and say solid to do app, and for this I'm going to give the class GitHub Copilot. I'm going to make it text large, and I'm going to say I'm gonna say text align text center. Okay, there you go, we got it. Let's also make it bold. I think it's text bold. I'm not sure. Okay, let's leave that. Or we can use this as a reference here. Let's quickly font bold. Yeah, okay. There you go. It's bold now. Okay. So what we're gonna do now? We're gonna copy over some stuff from React and basically, start from there. This is just to show you guys how easy it is to migrate from React to SolidJS. So like I said earlier, SolidJS gives you the flexibility to write components using JSX and TSX, and which is what we're gonna do now. I'm just gonna copy this piece of code here. Okay, I'm just gonna copy this piece of code and then probably put this in a container. MD and paste it here. Okay, there are some obviously type errors because we have copied stuff from React into SolidJS, which we will be fixing now. Okay, I'm gonna get rid of this reference here. I'm just gonna comment these guys out so that we can use them later. Yeah, we'll get to this point in a minute. So what we need now, we need basically a way to actually maintain and manage our to-dos. So again, coming from React ecosystem, you would do that using state. You could also use state in SolidJS with a function called createSignal. But for the purpose of this tutorial, we're not going to use that. We are going to use something called from SolidJS store. We're going to use something called createStore. So this is basically something like you can imagine this like a Redux store or a Mobex store. You can think of it as whatever you want. But this is a SolidJS store. So the way you create a SolidJS store is basically say create store and then pass in an initial data here. So, okay, GitHub Copilot is suggesting everything for us, which is good. So let's define our to-do using this interface. So I'm going to be using name, and then I'm going to say is done, which is a Boolean. And I would also like to have an ID for each to-do, which is a number. Now this is an interesting thing here to note. Because I'm going to be using the index of each to-do item from the list as the ID. Okay, we'll get to that in a minute. Okay, so now I have the interface here, and then I'm gonna say let's create an interface for the store as well. To-dos, and I would be adding, okay, there you go, GitHub Copilot. That's awesome. So I'm gonna say read only. Yeah, you can say to-dos count, or let's say get done to-dos, which is going to give us the list of to-dos which are done, and get all to-dos, which is going to give us basically the list, all the to-dos that we have. So we're going to define these functions now. So how we are going to do that? So we're gonna first let's give the type to this store interface, and then we say initially the ID, let's keep it at 0 since it's an index. I'm just gonna give some initial state to this piece here, and then initially it is false. Okay, so now TypeScript is complaining that our interface is not fully defined. The initial state is not fully defined. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say get done to-dos. GitHub Copilot, you're awesome. Okay, this is not what I need. And then I'm gonna say this dot to-dos. So this is a get function. There you go. Get done to-dos. And then we are going to say get all to-dos. This is going to return all the to-dos. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so now we have okay, TypeScript does not know. I mean, it should know, but yeah, let's keep it simple now. Okay, so what these functions are going to do now, these getters are going to get all the done to-dos, and this get all to-dos getter is going to return basically all the to-dos that we have in the list in the store. So how we are going to consume this now? So let's do to-do store, and it basically comes with a set to-do store function, which we will be using it. Okay, cool. Now we have a initial store which we can already consume. Let's hide this folder view here. Okay, I'm just going to copy this now. Okay, so now we have the components here. We do have some errors which we will be fixing now. So what we're going to do now, so we're going to have to iterate over the to-dos and basically, show them. So the way we do that in SolidJS is using this inbuilt component called for, which you can use to iterate over any kind of list. So I'm just gonna say to-dos, and this basically gives out a function. It needs a function as a child, and first I need to import this. Let's do that, and this is how it looks, guys. Okay, nice. So what it does is it takes an argument, which is like the list that we want to iterate over, and basically calls this function every time when it iterates over it. Okay, it's pretty basic stuff, right? Okay, we don't need the key in SolidJS because again, SolidJS does not have virtual DOM concept, which React uses to compare the diffs. This function is not defined yet. Let's do that in a minute. Let's just see if the to-dos are appearing now. Okay. Okay, there you go. We got it. So yeah, so now what we've done, we've created a store, we have given some initial state to the store, and we've actually rendered all the to-dos. That's all we've done so far. So let's see if this actually works. Yeah, okay, perfect. So now we want to add the mechanism to mark a to-do as done. How we're going to do that is we're going to do that using this onChange function of the input checkbox, and we want to define this on toggle to do. So let's go ahead and do that. You might already be wondering why I'm writing all this in the same file, but yeah, we will get to that point in a minute. So on toggle to do takes an ID, which is a number, and this basically is the index. So let's call it index, just so we don't run into any other confusions here. So this is GitHub Copilot suggesting it to do it in the React way of things, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to say set to do store, and then I need to pass which piece of store I need to update, and I'm going to say index here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to say is done is the negation of already is done flag. So now what this is going to do, this is going to take the first argument as to-dos, which is basically the piece in store, the property in store, which I'd like to update. And it takes an argument index. This is basically the reference to the list. So the item at index position will be updated is what this line number 33 is going to do. Okay, so now let's see if that works. It doesn't. Probably there is some error here. Okay, I think we have not fixed all the errors here. onChange. Okay, a classic mistake here. So I'm just gonna have to return a function here because, yeah, there you go. Okay, now index. Okay, this index is not the index that I need from the iterator, but rather the ID that I've generated. Awesome. Okay, there you go. Still errors, cannot read property, undefined, on toggle to do. Okay, there you go. I think the hot reloading had like a lag there. Okay, so what we have done so far. Okay, now let's go ahead and see if this works. There you go, it works. So when you mark a to do as done, you basically strike it through. Okay, nice. So far so good, right? Okay, let's do one more thing here. Oh, okay. Yeah, I need to make this a get function, and probably, yeah, get out this arrow function, and yeah. Okay, so why is TypeScript complaining here? Okay, okay, I think we need to return this, which is why it is complaining. Okay, it is again complaining, which is because, yeah, we haven't defined our get all to-dos. TypeScript sometimes makes me go nuts. That reminds me of a question. When was the last time you guys made TypeScript go nuts? Do leave a comment in this in this video. Okay, yet another typer here. I'm gonna force type this. Okay, so now what we have done, we've basically written two getter functions, one to get all the done to-dos and one to get all the to-dos. So let's go ahead and see if the store logic actually works. Okay, so I'm gonna define this as to-do store, and we need a set to-do store function to basically do the updates. Okay, so let me collapse the sidebar and also the terminal. Okay, so unlike React, in SolidJS, the way we iterate over list is using a special component called for. So the way it works is I'm gonna give it a property called each. Let me first import this, and then I'm gonna say store dot to-do store dot to-dos. Okay, so what it takes a function as a child and gives us the to-do item in the list plus the index. So also we don't need key here. In SolidJS, we don't need key. Why? Because SolidJS does not have the virtual DOM implementation, which is why we don't need to pass keys to a list of components. Okay, so we've gotten rid of the key. Now we have to fix this on change. Okay, let's comment this out for a minute again and see if it actually works. Okay, there you go. Okay. Yeah, it basically renders the initial list. Now we need to add functionality to add a to-do and mark a to-do as done. So what I'm gonna do now, we can do this actually. We can start with marking a to-do as done. So I will create a function called onToggleToDo, which is going to take an index as an argument, and this function is going to return another function which is basically going to set our to do as done. Okay, how we are going to do that? I think this is going to be interesting, guys. Okay, so we can perform updates on a store in several different ways. If you look at the documentation of SolidJS, they have like various methods to update the store. The one such method that we're going to use now is to actually say, so which piece of store I'm going to update. I'm going to update to-dos being a list. I'm going to pass in index, and I'm going to say is done is actually to-do store to-dos of index dot is done. Okay, so what's happening here? So I have provided 3 arguments to the set to-do store function. The first one being the property, which we are going to update, and the second argument is the index, and the third one is actually the field that we want to update inside the list. So now what we need to do is we need to say here, instead of passing the index, I'm going to pass the to ID. Remember why I said ID is important here? Because I'm not going to actually reference these updates based on the index of the list. I'm just going to make a unique identifier for each to-do and use that to perform my updates. This will come in handy when we actually implement the done column. Yeah, so let's see if this works. It doesn't. Oh, it does. Maybe the refresh didn't work there. Okay, cool. So we have now a mechanism to mark a to-do as done, or even toggle a to. Let's call it toggle a to-do. Now we can go ahead and add the functionality to add the to-do, add a to-do. So what I'm gonna do on add to-do, this is going to take a name of a to-do, which is a string. Could also be undefined because you could, I mean, we're not going to validate the input field there. We're just gonna do it like naively here. And if there is a name, what we want to do here, again, there is one way of updating a list, which is again using the same mechanism as before, but instead of passing in an index and a property update, I'm gonna write a callback here which gives us the list of to-dos, and I'm gonna say name is done false, and then id should be the length of the to-dos, so t dot length. Expected at least. Okay, my VS Code was a little slow there. Okay, cool. So now we have the on add to do, which I'm gonna implement it here. So now comes the reference part, guys. I think in React, we know how to create a reference, right, for an element. In SolidJS, however, it's a little different than React. So what I do is I'm gonna create a global let variable here. I'm gonna call it probably input ref, and then I'm also going to attach a type to it, input element or null. And then I'm gonna say initially it's null. So there are like two different ways that you can create reference in SolidJS. One is by a simple assignment like so. So you could just say input ref equals element. This is one way of doing it. The other way would be to actually no, I think this is the only way, if I'm not wrong. Maybe, yeah, let's look at the documentation and see if there is another way. The other way would be, I guess you could do it on the effect, but yeah, we're not going to do that. We are doing this now. And then I would have access to this guy here. So I'm going to say input ref dot value. Perfect. Okay, so this is again deprecated, which is something that I'm not going to worry. So now when let me refresh once again. Now when I say learn React, there you go, bam, we have it. And we have the mark to do, toggle to do functionality as well. Okay, so I'm just gonna get rid of this index. It's not of use anymore. Okay, so far we have created a store. We have given some getters, and we do have two functions which basically toggles and adds a to-do. So what we need now we need to build a done column, which is going to basically show the number of to-dos which are yet to be done, and also the to-dos which are done as in a list. Let's go ahead and do that. But before we do that, what I would like to do now is just to make it a little cleaner. So what I will do is I'm gonna create a folder called todos.store.ts. So I'm gonna have all the store related operations and logic here. So I mean, it's easy peasy, just copy and paste it. I'm just gonna cut and then paste it here. Get all the import statements. Okay, and let's export everything. I think this makes sense. Maybe we might have to use it somewhere else, but yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna export the to-do store as well, plus the functions which I created. Okay, nice. Now we have the to-do store. Let's go ahead and import that here. We don't need this anymore. So what do we need? Well, we need the to-do store. We need on add to do. We need on toggle to do. Okay, is TypeScript happy? Yes, it is. Let's refresh and then let's see if this works. It does. Awesome. So now we have our store related stuff inside a separate file. So you might be wondering, oh my God, this is a module level variable that we are exporting, but still it works. Well, that's the magic of SolidJS, guys. It uses proxy internally to actually, handle updates and read and writes. We will cover the topic in the upcoming tutorials of the SolidJS series and learn more about the in-depth behavior of SolidJS. Okay, moving on. So now we need to build the done column. Okay, for this, again, I'm just going to clean up the component a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly go and create a todo.tsx file. Okay, this is a component. And then this is going to return something. This component can be exported from SolidJS. So yeah, you might be wondering what this component is. This component is nothing but the return type of this functional component that we are creating. In React world, this could be React FC, it could be React Pure Component, whatever you have in React here, which is basically the same thing in Solid. Yeah, so what we are going to do, we are going to copy over these things. Yeah, I think we're gonna copy over this and then probably need a fragment here just so to wrap them up, and copy this. Is this needed? Yeah, it is. Okay, and probably this as well. Yeah, this is definitely needed. Okay, cool. TypeScript happy? No, not yet. Okay, now it's gonna be happy. There it is. Okay, so now we would render this to-do component here. Okay, now the app has become a little nicer. Okay, there you go. There you go. Nice. Now what we want to do is let's make this a flex container. And then give this a class flex row. No, wait, my bad. Let's first create the, no, wait, I think I'm missing something here. This is a fragment, this is flex, which is already, okay. I think this makes sense here. Flex column space y is, let's give it 5 pixels on the y-axis. Well, we don't need this, I guess. Yeah. Okay, now we have made this a flex component so that we can go ahead and make the to do and done as another flex component, and this is a flex row. Yeah, probably we need to change the width of that input field. We'll do that. And then we are going to say space x is, let's just give some gap in between the two items here. Yeah, and then now here we would be creating our done component. Okay, cool. This is not written. Let's write it. I'm just gonna say export done component and then return something. Import the component from SolidJS. And this is basically going to do nothing but just create another flex container, and it's gonna be flex row. By default it is flex row, we don't need to specify that in Tailwind, but yeah, anyways, this is going to have a heading which is going to say done, and let's apply the same classes as we did for this guy here. Okay. So I'm just going to quickly copy this over, and then I'm going to say class, copy it. Now here we would want to iterate over the done to do's. Okay, let's use the for each. Now we need store, to do store, get all to do's. No, we need get done to do's. Yeah. Okay, this is a function. It's going to take a to do, and basically it's going to create a list of to do's. Okay, I need another div here just to make it more flexed. And this is again a row. Here I'm gonna say, well, let's just use a span here and then say name. Okay, done. Now I would also like to have on click here, which is going to use on toggle to do. And then I pass in the to do dot id. There you go. This is not yet imported. Yeah. Okay, perfect. So what we have done, we have created a done component, gave it a heading, and then iterated over the list of done to do's, and then we are displaying it there. We would also need a pending count here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do it inside here. Okay, I'm just gonna create another span so that it's easier. I need a string literal here, and then I'm gonna say pending to do. So now how do we get the number of to-dos which are not yet done? You could naively again access it from the store, and then probably you could do something like this: get all to-dos minus get done to-dos. Yeah, you need to specify the length property here. You could do something like this. This is more like a naive approach. Let's first see if this works. So I've already exported this, so I'm just gonna import this again. Okay, nice. Weirdly enough, sometimes the auto reloading doesn't work. Okay, the styling is off. Let's quickly fix that. Flex row, probably this needs to be sometimes I'm like confused between flex column and flex rows and all these things. Let me go ahead and just do this. So we have a flex row here, so this has to be a row rather than a column. Yeah, that's correct. To do is on the left and done is on the right. And what is wrong here? So we have a list of span, and also we have pending to do's. Okay, so okay guys, I think I missed the column here. Okay, now we have a column layout. Let's go ahead and see if this works. It does work. Now the pending to-dos are 0, and we already have an item in the list. But again, the style is messed up, but I think I'm gonna hit refresh. Okay, this needs to be column as well. No? Yeah. Okay, cool. Now we have two columns. One is the to-dos, the way to enter the to-dos on the left, and the ones which are done on the right. So now as you keep adding stuff, learn React. Okay, see, now the pending to-dos got updated. So this is one way of doing it, which I mentioned. It's a little naive, but it does work. Another way here would be to do this inside a createMemo function. Pending to-dos. createMemo is nothing unlike useMemo in React, but the thing is, you don't need to pass any kind of dependencies to SolidJS hooks. In React, you might have seen, if you are a beginner, you might have seen this concept called dependencies array, which is basically telling the hook to rerun again whenever their dependencies update. But SolidJS kind of intuitively knows when to actually compute something. For example, this createMemo is a compute operation. It is going to take the length of something, length of two lists, and then subtract it, right? So as soon as something in the store updates, the createMemo is kind of subscribing to the updates and actually returning the new value. So now if you see, what? This is so weird. Okay. Wow, this can't be right. Oops. So what is happening? createMemo from SolidJS. I'm using a callback and then I'm saying length minus. Oh yeah, again. Okay. Again, a mistake coming from React, because the createMemo is again going to pass down two values. No, wait, I think it's going to pass down, my bad. I think it's going to pass down, it's going to return an accessor value. So basically the way you need to access is calling this iterator. So this is a really cool concept in SolidJS, which we will be getting to in a different tutorial. So when you use functions like createMemo, createSignals, createResources, the way you access whatever you are trying to create is basically calling the async iterator. So now it works. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna say learn React. I'm gonna mark them as done. Now the cool important thing is to see if, okay, that's perfect. If marking them undone actually, makes the to do undone in the left side. Well, it does. Okay, cool. So yeah, these are two different versions of getting some computed values. I would strongly recommend using createMemo, which is more memoized way of doing things. But you could also do the other approach, and probably Solid is going to know where to update exactly, because this is the important point that I mentioned earlier in my introduction session, that every component executes once, but only the hooks and its bindings executes whenever the dependencies update. So that is a pretty solid point. You can actually see that in action. So what I'm going to do now is, I'm not going to worry about the styling too much here, because I think we have covered whatever we wanted to cover. I'm just gonna show something real quick, both in React and in Solid. So I'm just gonna say app rendered. I hope you can see my console in the browser. Okay, let me refresh. Okay, so app is rendered. Now in React, well, let's do the same thing in React. Okay, this is the React app. I'm just gonna do it here. Rendered. Okay, cool. Is React running by any chance? Okay, it is running. Yeah, okay, cool. Okay, so now we have the React app here, and I'm gonna refresh again, and you've seen the console message saying that app is rendered. Let's go ahead and add a to do here. App rendered again. One more. GraphQL. App rendered again. Let's do something fun. Let's mark it as done. App rendered again. App rendered again. So this has become a pattern in React whenever, something updates in the state, which is like a good pattern in React. I'm not complaining. The pieces associated with the state also gets updated. In this case, the app being the piece and the state being the to-dos. Whereas in Solid, I think I have, does it have any? No, it doesn't. Whereas in Solid, you already see an app rendered log in the console, which is the first console that happened. Now let's go ahead and add React. Nothing. So the app never renders now. You might argue that since I've taken all the store and put it inside to do, but that's not the case. Even if the store was inside the app, and if we accessed it inside the app, it would have probably not reran again. So that's the concept that I mentioned earlier, that every component executes only once, and SolidJS is kind of smart enough to actually update the pieces of the components in the tree as and when the proxy store or proxy signals get updated. Now another cool thing, again to emphasize this point more, is actually go ahead and add a log here. I haven't tried this out myself, but yeah, let's see. To do rendered. Okay, hot reloading, app rendered, to do rendered. Learn to do. Sorry, learn React. There you go, guys. It didn't re-render. Also, let's mark this as done. Nope, nothing. Okay, fair enough. Let's see if this. Okay, thank you, GitHub Copilot. This is the first render. Nothing. So there you go, guys. This is what I was talking about earlier, about the re-rendering mechanism in SolidJS. This seems a little hacky sometimes, but coming from the React side of things, this might seem pretty unusual for us, but it does the job. Plus, it also does it more intelligently, which is what the author of the creator of SolidJS claims. So this is it, guys. I think we have covered most of the topics. If you have any questions regarding the to-do application setup, feel free to leave a comment. I'm gonna push this code into the GitHub repository, and you guys can do whatever you want with it if you want to. Okay. Now I think it's time to go back to the initial slide where we actually mentioned a few questions if we are going to answer them. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, guys, so we have learned how to write a to-do application using SolidJS. We've also seen a lot of things that Solid could do in a more nicer and better way than React does. So now let's try and answer this specific question, which I said we will answer in the end of this session. Can you replace your existing React project with SolidJS? Now, to answer this question, there are like various different things that we need to keep in mind here. One main thing is the ecosystem. React has a huge ecosystem. It's been there for more than, I don't know, 8 years or so, and it has evolved tremendously faster than any other frameworks out there. And obviously it is maintained and managed by Facebook. Also it has a lot of contributors. On the other hand, SolidJS is an up and coming framework. It was launched around 2019, 2020. I'm not entirely sure about that, but yeah, it's been there for quite a while, and it has gained a huge popularity, especially among the React developers. And now it is actually starting to gain more and more popularity, thanks to all the community who's like promoting SolidJS to React developers and also to other developers for that matter. So yeah, having said that, SolidJS is actually gaining popularity, but it does not have the ecosystem that React has. It has a bit of an ecosystem. It has like quite a good amount of contributors. It has a quite a good amount of downloads, but still, when you run into issues, you might get stuck in a dark hole, where you need a lot of further resources and research to do. So that is one main thing, the ecosystem. The other thing, when it comes to migrating your existing React project to SolidJS, heavily depends on the team size and also how big the application is. If your application is scaling at a tremendous pace, then you might want to think about sticking to React and probably migrate it incrementally if you happen to like SolidJS. So that's one thing. And the other thing that I would also like to say here is SolidJS is quite simple and it's also very declarative. When you kickstart a project, which is kind of B2B or something that is used internally within your company, then you can think of using SolidJS. You can definitely keep it as an option, and also try different things with SolidJS and increase the popularity of SolidJS. So yeah, it also depends on the size of the team. You need to get your developers onboarded into SolidJS, and probably you need to convince a lot of people, if you know what I mean. So yeah, so these three factors, the ecosystem, the scale of the application, and the actual purpose of the application is quite important when you actually think about migrating your existing or writing something new in SolidJS. So I think that might have answered that question, but feel free to leave comments and let me know your thoughts about SolidJS and also about this video. If you like this video, please subscribe, like, and share it with your friends. And don't forget to leave some comments in the comment section so that we can make this more interactive, and also would probably help me to do more SolidJS videos in the future. I hope you guys like this tutorial. Until next time, it's me, Vijay, signing off.